You know that moment before a simple conversation, maybe a meeting, a phone call, even a casual "we need to talk" text, and suddenly you're pacing your kitchen like you're preparing for a courtroom trial? You replay the opening line, you predict their reaction, you draft your response to a response that hasn't happened yet. Maybe you even win the argument, alone, in the shower. If that's you, you're not dramatic, you're not weird, and you're definitely not alone. But there is a psychology behind people who rehearse conversations in advance, and it's deeper than just overthinking. It touches anxiety, identity, control, attachment, and even how safe you feel being seen in real time. So why do some people walk into conversations effortlessly while others need a full mental rehearsal tour? Let's look at the different minds behind this quiet habit. First, there's the outcome architect. Picture someone lying in bed at night, eyes open, running tomorrow's conversation like a movie trailer. They're not just thinking about what they'll say, they're calculating tone, timing, facial expression, the exact pause before the difficult sentence. They aren't obsessed with talking, they're obsessed with outcomes. For this type, conversations feel consequential. Words can shift relationships. One wrong phrase can close a door. So rehearsing becomes a way to control the emotional weather. Psychologically, this often comes from growing up in environments where communication had stakes. Maybe misunderstandings led to conflict. Maybe emotions escalated quickly. Maybe being careless with words had consequences. So now, as adults, they prepare. It's not manipulation, it's protection. If I say it right, nothing will explode. If I plan it carefully, I won't regret it later. Do you find yourself scripting not because you love control, but because you fear fallout? Then there's the self-editor. This person doesn't just rehearse what they'll say, they rehearse who they'll be. They try different versions of themselves in their head. Should I sound confident, casual, detached, warm but not too warm? They're hyper-aware of perception. How they come across matters, sometimes more than the actual topic of conversation. Why? Because for them, identity feels fragile in social space. They may have been misunderstood in the past, or labeled, or dismissed. So now, every conversation becomes a small stage where they get another chance to get it right. Rehearsal becomes self-editing. Let me sand down that awkward phrase. Let me remove the part that sounds needy. Let me appear unbothered. Underneath isn't vanity, it's vulnerability. They want to be accepted, but they don't fully trust spontaneous them to do the job. Maybe you relate to that quiet pressure, the feeling that you must pre-approve your personality before sharing it. Another profile is the conflict minimizer. You can spot them by how carefully they phrase things. I might be wrong, but just to clarify, I don't want to upset anyone. Before a hard conversation, they run scenarios like a crisis simulator. If they say this, the other person might feel attacked. If they say that, it might escalate. What's the safest phrasing possible? This isn't about winning, it's about avoiding rupture. Often, this pattern forms in people who learned that conflict equals instability. Maybe arguments meant emotional withdrawal. Maybe tension lingered for days. Maybe peace had to be maintained at all costs. So now, rehearsal becomes diplomacy. They aren't afraid of talking, they're afraid of losing connection. And here's the twist. The more they rehearse to avoid conflict, the more pressure they feel to execute perfectly, which ironically increases anxiety. Sound familiar? Then there's the high sensitivity processor. This person doesn't just rehearse because they're anxious, they rehearse because their mind naturally processes deeply. They replay conversations after they happen. They analyze tone shifts. They notice subtle facial expressions others miss. So before a conversation, their brain does what it always does, simulate. For them, rehearsal isn't forced, it's automatic. They imagine possible emotional outcomes because their nervous system is tuned to nuance. It's like their mind says, let's pre-feel everything. The benefit? They're often empathetic and thoughtful communicators.
The downside, they can exhaust themselves before the conversation even begins. If you've ever felt drained before you've said a single word, you might live here. But here's something we don't talk about enough. Sometimes rehearsing conversations is about power, not over others, but over uncertainty. Spontaneity requires trust. Trust that you can think on your feet. Trust that you can tolerate awkward pauses. Trust that if you stumble, you'll survive it. Rehearsing is a way of saying, I don't fully trust the moment. And that's not a flaw, it's information. Maybe you've been in moments where you froze, or said too much, or wished you could rewind. So now you prepare. But here's the quiet cost. Real conversations are alive. They move, they surprise you. And when you've rehearsed too rigidly, you're not fully present. You're comparing reality to your script. They didn't respond the way you predicted. Now what? And suddenly you're off balance. The irony? The skill you're trying to build, confidence, can only grow in unscripted space. That doesn't mean rehearsing is bad. Sometimes it's wise. Important talks deserve thought. The question is, does rehearsal support you or control you? Do you prepare and then release, or do you cling to the script like a lifeline? Because underneath all of this is something very human, the desire to be understood without being wounded. People who rehearse conversations in advance usually care deeply about clarity, about connection, about not making things worse. They are rarely careless communicators, but they may struggle to trust that imperfect words can still lead to meaningful understanding. So if this is you, maybe the invitation isn't to stop rehearsing entirely. It's maybe to rehearse less for perfection and more for intention. Instead of scripting every line, ask yourself, what do I actually want from this conversation? Honesty? Closure? Understanding? Am I trying to protect myself or connect? And can I allow space for the other person to surprise me? Because sometimes the most powerful conversations are the ones that go off script. So which type feels closest to you? The outcome architect? The self-editor? The conflict minimizer? The deep processor? Or maybe you're a blend, depending on the situation. Notice when you start rehearsing this week. Don't judge it, just observe it. What are you trying to prevent? What are you hoping to control? What would happen if you trusted yourself a little more in real time? If this reflection resonated, stay with that curiosity. And if you want more explorations into the quiet patterns we don't usually name, you can subscribe and keep the conversation going. After all, you've probably already rehearsed what you'd say in the comments.